Ladies and gentlemen, your MC, Billy Price, Eagle Scout and co-founder of Billy Footwear.
So there I was. That's always a good way to start a story, don't you think? You get the feeling that something juicy is going to happen. So there I was. 13 years old, wearing a pack half my weight, laying on my back in the middle of a stream, contemplating life. I was on a 5-day high-adventure trek into the Olympic Mountains based out of the scout camp, Camp Parsons in Washington State. It was day 4, and I and all my earthly possessions were now soaked. It was my first major backpacking trip, and I felt myself being stretched further than ever before. My once meticulously packed pack now had a daypack haphazardly strapped to it to carry more gear, and a giant 5-pound block of cheese, as you do. We slept under tarps, not in tents. If there were no trees for the tarps, we slept under the open sky with hopes it would not rain. One night we slept in a boulder field. My feet, yikes. I was burning through moleskin to stay ahead of blisters, and it felt like we had crossed more streams than I could possibly count. So when day 4 came around, with another stream to cross, I came up with a plan to keep my feet and boots dry. My thought was I could leap from the shore, land on a log covered in moss, precarious at best, and then with one more leap, be safe and dry on the other side. That was the plan of an optimistic 13-year-old. And how did that plan go? Well, I think you know. Like a cartoon character on a banana peel, I quickly discovered my plan was flawed. With a leap and a slip and a sploosh, I was on my back, lying on my pack like a capsized turtle, stuck, soaked to the bone, and wondering what just happened. Good times. That was not the first time in my life, or I should say that was not the only time in my life that I found myself on a back under rather odd circumstances. Fast forward 5 years. I was a freshman in college, living in a fraternity at the University of Washington. About 3 a.m. one night, I found myself lying on my back outside of the house, unable to move. This time, I was lying on cold concrete, and the situation was much different. Unbeknownst to me, I had fallen headfirst from a 3-story window, and that news did not sink into my brain until a few hours later. I remember lying on my back once again, this time on a hospital table, in a total state of confusion. It was as if I was in a bad dream that I could not wake up from. Completely oblivious to the fact that I was receiving trauma treatment, I spat out the unasked question. What happened? And then one of the nurses told me, and I will never forget her words. They are as clear to me now as they were then. She said, last night, you fell headfirst from a 3-story window. You broke your neck, you broke your back, you have a spinal cord injury, and you will never walk again. Upon hearing those words, my world as I knew it came crumbling down, because all I could think about was the stuff that I knew. Soccer, baseball, skiing, swimming, climbing, hiking, mountain biking, you name it. I did not have the tools to process my new reality. Instead of being able to focus on what I knew, I had to focus on something completely different, something almost unbearably challenging, and that was to somehow piece back together a shattered life. So how does one do that? How does one move forward from something so traumatic? Well, I'll tell you, it's not easy. And it takes a lot of time, sometimes a tremendous amount of time. But it all starts with a choice. and the association around you. I was surrounded by friends, family, and medical professionals that believed in me and saw potential in me before I saw potential in myself. With their support, I made a choice to let go and build on what I still had instead of focusing on what I lost. Inch by inch, I was able to improve and grow. What started as tasks of simply writing my name, feeding myself, and brushing my own teeth turned into getting dressed and pushing a wheelchair. 5 months later, I discharged from the hospital. I re-enrolled in school, moved back to the fraternity, this time taking up residence on the first floor, and then later graduated in mechanical engineering. During the summers, I had a couple of internships with Boeing, as well as I worked on the Camp Parsons staff, and actually in 2003, I had the joy of being the program director. From there, I got a job with the Federal Aviation Administration, where I worked for 16 years. Along the way, I bought a condo, I traveled the world, I married the love of my life, who's sitting right over there, and now we have a 6-month-old son who being 6 months, he refuses to sleep. And on top of all that, I co-founded a shoe company called Billy Footwear, who's now placed in Nordstrom, Kids Foot Locker, Zappos, and coming soon will be in Scheels, Journeys, and Macy's. So when I reflect back on my journey since being in a chair, and consider that when I first got hurt, my mind was polluted with the notion that there was nothing worth living if you couldn't walk, I'd say my life is pretty good. And I say that not in the spirit of trying to put myself on a pedestal, but to illustrate just how much potential we each have within us to grow. We have the ability to build our capacity beyond what we think is possible, especially when others are investing and building our development. That is what I love and appreciate so much about scouting. We are challenged by the circumstances, not in an attempt to break us, but in an attempt to strengthen us and learn and improve and pay those lessons and experiences forward. Scouting creates a positive environment that allows aspiring youth to grow. And speaking of growth, it reminds me of that time 28 years ago when my 13-year-old self was lying on my backpack in the middle of a stream. I remember having to disconnect myself from my pack just to stand up with soaked feet and soaked boots, which is what I was trying to avoid in the first place, mind you. I disconnected from my pack, looked down at the rest of my submerged gear and the cheese, and drug it out of the stream over to dry land. The hike master looking at my pack, then looking at me, confident I could sort out a solution to my epic fail, simply asked me with a slight grin, "So now what are you going to do?" To everyone in this room, I thank you sincerely for your contribution to scouting. I thank you for your dedication to foster an environment where scouts can build their capacity, grow through their failures, and discover their untapped potential. Together we are better, and together we are moving forward and building a better future. Thank you. Wow. Thank you.